Hi everyone, welcome to this new episode of Tech Captains. Today we welcome Mohamed Labouardy, the CTO and co-founder of TailWarden, which is an open source platform that empowers the next generation of developers to take control of their cloud infrastructure. At least that's the sales pitch, but I'm sure you'll tell us more. Hi Mohamed.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And as usual, we have Gareth Thomas from CTO at Health City, who will be joining me into asking questions to Mohammed and discussing with him. Hi, Gareth.
Hi guys. Hi Mohammed. Nice to meet you.
So, Mohammed, I looked a bit at your LinkedIn in preparation of this interview, obviously, and I saw you went from Morocco to France. You worked or did internship. I'm not sure in nuclear energy, freelancing, DevOps. You know, the co-founder of a startup for the second time, if I'm not mistaken. So, like, do you want to tell us a bit more and how did these experiences, which are very different on paper, shaped you?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Mohamed. I'm 29. I'm originally from Morocco. So after high school, I went to university where I got my bachelor degree in computer science. Then I moved to France, where I got my master degree in software engineering at University of Bordeaux. Then moved to Paris where I started my career as a software engineer at Intercloud, which is a company in the cloud space. Basically, they are creating private network for big companies so that they can connect their infrastructure from on-premise to cloud providers using private connectivity services. It was my first hand-on experience, I would say, with cloud providers, where like also I discovered DevOps practices, so which made me later on switch to a DevOps role. So I have joined Fox Intelligence, which is a deep tech company that gives data insights on the market based on online transactions. So I was the head of DevOps and I was responsible of building a multi-cloud infrastructure for them on both AWS and GCP. We were like handling terabytes of data every day. Along that time, I have started an open source project called it Commissar. It was from a first hand on experience or pain that we were like suffering back then, which is having insights and transparency in how much we were spending on the cloud. As I said, like we had a multi-cloud infrastructure, we were spending thousands of dollars a day. And we had this issue of like infrastructural fragmentation, which is like we had too many resources on multiple cloud providers, multiple cloud regions, multiple cloud accounts, and we had this problem of lack of transparency, which like creates a door of multiple problems like cost waste, security threats, and compliance issues. So we created the project back then, and then we made it open source. Fast forward, I have joined eFounders, which is a European startup studio that have created a lot of early stage companies and also unicorns like Aircall, Spendesk, and Front. I have launched a company with them in the HR space and then created the team and the product.
And what were the requirements to join eFounders, which I've heard about before?
Yeah, so like the requirement, since Fox Intelligence was also part of the portfolio of eFounders, so I was already aware of how like the startup studio was working back then, and also like it was also like an interesting like challenge for me because like we have already created an MVP before joining eFounders, so it was quite different in terms of how eFounders usually works because usually eFounders they came up with ideas and then they look for founders to pick up the idea. But like for us, like we had already the side project and we had already like an MVP of the
So
product.
what kind of help they give you then?
Like it's like more on the coaching part. Like when it comes like they have their experts when it comes to GTM, when it comes like to marketing and also like the network. And also they were also the folks that pushed us to apply for YC. Since as I said, we were on the HR space. So and we know that the market size in the US is huge for recruitment. So like it was a natural choice for us also like to apply for YC. So yeah, that's what made us like afterward like apply to Y Combinator. We joined in December of 2021, raised $2 million as a seed round. Then a few years later, I had the urge to go back to the DevOps and cloud infrastructure challenges. So I have teamed up with Cyril, which is a former colleague that I have met back then at Fox Intelligence, to launch TailWarden, which I can tell you about in a few. Along the way, I have written 4 books about cloud native apps, serverless, and distributed application. And I also like maintain a DevOps newsletter that I have released recently, and it became quite popular. It had over 140,000 subscribers. So yeah, so that's
Oh,
basically
wow.
so
I didn't know you wrote books. Like
He's a
there's always
busy
something
man.
new. Like so,
Yeah, you're a
yeah.
busy man. So then we had someone, the first episode, the guy we talked to there maintains an open source project as well. Why did you decide to do that? I mean, on top of everything else, because I noticed this morning I was looking, you've had like 250 forks of your repo, so you got some pressure there from people, looking for you to be maintaining it. Why did you choose to do that?
like I think like I was before like doing this as a founder, I was always contributing to open source projects. I think it was the most rewarding thing I have ever done. Like of course, like giving back to the community and at the same time learning from other people. And also I think that also helping me like grow at the professional level. Like why we are like making like the product open source is because like the cloud providers complexity, we think that the best way to like address this complexity is by making an open source model, like not like a closed source model. So we have decided to make the company open core. So all our KPIs, like either the financial KPIs or the growth KPIs, are public. The same for the roadmap, which is public, and that's helped us like to empower more developers to solve the pain that we had back then at Fox Intelligence, which is still relevant today with cloud, for instance, with the cloud cost optimization issues.
Yeah, and then that's a really good reason because I mean, whenever they have AWS reInvent, the amount of new features that get pushed out, it's crazy, isn't it? So you're right. I mean, for you to keep up with that in a closed source scenario, you'd have to have a much larger team of engineers, and it'd be a lot more challenging, a lot more money would be needed, wouldn't it, to do that from the start? So
Yeah, exactly. Like as you said, like just last year, I think there were over like 100 new products and features on the re-events. And in addition to that, like there is a lot of hype and FOMO with new technologies like Kubernetes and service, which makes like the taking the best decisions or picking the right tools like hard for developers. And like most of the like platform that exists today, like were created like for DevOps, not for developers. While like most of the work is done by developers. So yeah, so in addition to that, like in addition also like to the open source model, I think this is could be like the best approach for us to solve this pain when it comes to making the cloud like more transparent and collaborative for developers.
So, like, can you tell us maybe TailWarden, like in what it is, maybe with two, three small examples of what you offer, because obviously you offer a set of tools.
Yeah, of course. So we have started with Commissar, as I said, which is like a cloud asset inventory builder. So basically, like as I said in the beginning, one of the main issues that a lot of people are having is like the infrastructure fragmentation, because now it's very easy to create resources on the cloud with infrastructure as code tools like Terraform, CloudFormation, or like having CI/CD pipeline, etc. So it's very easy to create resources, and as a result, you have a lot of like unknown resources, untracked resources, which is like, as I said, can open the door to multiple issues like money that are wasted on the cloud, or like compliance issues or security vulnerabilities. So we want to solve this issue first by bringing back the control to the infrastructure by giving developers more transparency. And we are going to do that with Commissar. So Commissar basically helps you to build your cloud asset inventory by giving you the full picture of all the resources that you have in the cloud and their dependencies, the configuration, the infrastructure drift, etc. So once you have that, then we can make or bring the accountability to cloud span to developers and to team and to individuals, because today developers, they don't have this insights about like the resources they use on the infrastructure level, so which make it very hard for them like to take actions to optimize the cost, for instance, or to improve the security posture. So that's like one of the main components we are working today with Commissioner, and of course, in the long run, we are going to introduce other pillars to the product by building a comprehensive DevOps platform.
And yeah, I mean that's interesting. But I was also wondering, like, to build all of that. So, what's your tech stack? Because obviously, it need to be efficient, it need to be performant. But you're a startup, so you have limited resource, number of people who can write complex codes or lots of verbatim. So, what do
So
you write
mostly
it
all
in?
our services are written in Golang. It's deployed in AWS Lambda, so mostly service architecture. As for the front end, we use React, Next.js, and TypeScript. And like we use MongoDB for data persistency and also other cloud storage sources. And like we use Terraform as an infrastructure as code. And of course, we use Commissary to track all the cloud resources that we have.
You eat your own dog
Yeah,
food.
exactly.
That's always good, isn't it? Yeah. So I had a question about your stack because I saw on your blog entries, you were originally on Angular. And then you said we moved to React because we wanted the speed from server-side rendering. So I was a bit puzzled by that because Angular's had server-side rendering for quite a few years. So what that kind of been, there must have been a bit more to that.
Yeah,
decision.
I think like the main like reason for us was more like not at the technical aspect of the framework, but was more about the community adoption. Since like Commissioner was open source and like to make it say more attractive for developers to contribute to the project, it was like the main reason why we switched it to React. But to be honest, there is like nothing wrong with Angular. We have been using it for the last few years for Commissioner as an open source project. Just like now with the resources that we have and the money, like it will make us go faster when it comes to hiring people and also having more contributors coming to the project.
Yeah. I mean, these are really smart decisions you're making that I think sometimes people do miss, especially in startups, is the reality of finding resource, which then is interesting that you chose Golang, because I think, isn't it still hard to find, experienced Golang people, or is that much easier than it was?
I would say like it was the case 3 years ago, but like I think now since we are also a fully distributed team, I think like it make like the talent pool like larger. So far we didn't have an issue like finding like developers on Golang. And also since we are also serverless, even though like most of our services are written in Golang, it also gives us the flexibility like to write like functions in different programming languages. So yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice that you can mix and match like that in there. Yeah, very smart.
In terms of like, so the company is what now, 1 year old?
Like we started 7 months ago, so it's pretty recent. Yeah.
Months, so less. Okay, sorry, I was wrong there. So very early days. What were the biggest challenge in these first 7 months? I know you had to go through a company change very early on. I don't know if you want to speak about that or not, but like, what were some of the biggest challenges you had already?
Yeah, as you said, like I think one of the main challenges that we faced early on is like the company change, and also like since we are also an open core company, so everything we do is done in public when it comes to the roadmap, when it comes to the KPIs, etc. And also like we have this challenge of like building a community on Discord because we want like both developers and like cloud leaders to be empowered together so that we can make the future or shape the future of DevOps, because we believe that the future of DevOps should be transparent and collaborative. And it was one of the reasons why I have switched back then in my career from a software engineer to a DevOps engineer. Because for me, DevOps is not really a job; it's most like a practices that makes you more empowered and more productive, and that's what we want to do today. So I would say our main challenge today is to grow this community and make like a platform for the 99% of developers. Yeah.
Then it sort of brings me to a question I had about sort of platform engineering. What do you think about that?
I would say it's sort of the same thing as DevOps. Like I won't go that extreme and say DevOps is dead. I say like it's just like a new way of leveraging the different tools that were created by DevOps engineers, like to be more like leveraged by developers. Because as I said in the beginning, like most of the work that is done on the infrastructure level is done by developers, and like tools that were not created by developers for developers. So I think that also impacted like the wave of like companies that exist now in this space. Now they care a lot about developer experience. So at the end of the day, I would say like it's still the same, it's solve the same pain. It's just like a different way of like selling the DevOps as a practice or as a culture to developers.
Because what I think is interesting about what you do is that, like for instance, where I am now, I have a pretty big budget for all the engineering. I have 6 teams, and I was thinking with the platform engineering sort of idea of really allowing people to pick and choose and go and getting developers close to production, all of that stuff. And now you're bringing in another component where I can take part of my budget and go, okay, back end team, your budget's 200,000, and even allow them to manage at that level, and so really really giving them ownership over what they're building, which I think would be really cool.
Yeah, exactly. And like to circle back to what you said, like even like now developers, they have the budget, they can pick their own tools and their own platforms. So that's also changed like the growth strategies for developers tools. Like now they use like the PLG as a growth strategy, or like they do like a bottom up approach. So they need to create a community. So I think that all of that like shape it like how like this like concept of platform engineering was created. But like long story short, I think for me it's like at the end of the day to make developers more empowered, and that was the reason of why DevOps was created back then.
Yeah, that's the secret to moving faster, definitely.
Yeah. And Mohammed, so we're starting a new tradition in the podcast, asking the person we interview to recommend a book they read. I mean, I know you can recommend your own books, but like, what's the one you wanted to recommend today?
I would say like one of my favorite book is Shape Up by the founder of Basecamp. Like even though like the practices defined in the book are, I would say, like quite like inspired from the agile methodology, or we have been doing them like maybe intuitively, just like how the book like put together all those practices and describe the reasoning behind it. I found it like very insightful. And so that's, I would say, like one of the books I read often,
Oh, you read it
because
often,
like
so you
it's,
reread it, or like the
yeah,
full back to back?
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Like I think there is always things to learn and to adapt. Of course, like we don't like go on a 6 week cycle here at the early stage level, but still, I think there are a lot of practices that we pick, like doing books match as a cool down periods and stuff like that. So I think it's really an insightful book for product discovery and product delivery, and also it makes you like focus on like delivering the value to users while maintaining this momentum of velocity by shipping on a weekly basis, which is aligned also to what YC sells to their like companies and their like batch, which is like talk to users and build code and iterate. So that's which quietly resonates with the early stage where we are currently at TailWarden.
And what about your books? Do you want to give us the pitch and tell us where we can get them?
Yeah, I think like the books are really like a hands-on experience. If you like, for instance, if you want to get started on serverless, like the book I have written about serverless, I would say it was the first book that covered Golang, because Golang wasn't supported back then. So it was the first book like was dedicated really to Golang. So it covered all the different best practices when it comes to scalability, monitoring, logging, and stuff like that. So I would say that's something that I would like highly recommend to people if they want like to get their hands dirty and learn more about the service model. There is another one also about pipeline as code, even though like it focuses more on Jenkins, which is not a trend anymore, but I think there are still like some
I mean,
practices or
Jenkins
some.
has been replaced by many other tools like for CI/CD. So
Yeah, but like look into the some reports, it's still like heavily used. Like even though like there is a lot of like debates about Jenkins, it's still like heavily used. So I would say like I would focus more on the best practices, on like what we can on the takeaways than the solution or than the tool itself. So I always try to be agnostic when it comes to programming languages and the tools. I always try to pick what get the work done, and I think that's what I would like say about those books. Like even though they are quite specific in terms of technology, but I think there are some takeaways to learn to apply on different tools or cloud providers.
And your book, I mean, I'm guessing you talk about GCP and AWS in it, do you? From a serverless perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. You haven't got anything there about Microsoft, about Azure, then just GCP and AWS.
Yeah, like I would say like back then, like as again, it was also from a hands-on experience for me. Like I always try to write about things that like I'm involved in, because it makes it easier also, like to write about those things. But like I don't also have a lot of experience with Azure, to be honest. So that's why like it was mostly about AWS and GCP in terms of cloud providers.
so where can people listening us get your books?
like they can go to like my portfolio or my landing page, and they will find the links to those books on Amazon and other like
So I have a last
websites.
question, Mohamed. Obviously, you're the first DevOps engineer we've had on the show so far. So, what in your career? At what point did you kind of go, "Yeah, I'm going to go into DevOps. This is what I want to do." And what made you make that change or make that decision?
I think it was a natural like transition. When I joined Intercloud in the beginning, and it was the first startup I worked at. Like I I had this hands-on experience with cloud providers because that what their business model was, and I discovered a lot of tools like Docker, Kubernetes back then, and using CI/CD, and I felt like this is something all developers should be doing, and like that's my responsibility. Shouldn't be at writing code, but should go to the extra mile on understanding how the infrastructure works, how I can monitor like the key KPIs for the service, etc. So that's how I got started into the DevOps. So I wouldn't describe myself as the classic or traditional DevOps guy that has the sysops on S3 background. And that's what we want to like democratize with TailWarden is we want to simplify DevOps and cloud for all developers.
Yeah, I mean I think that's a really noble reason. I like that.
Thank you, Mohamed. Thank you, Gareth. I think that was a very insightful discussion. Very interesting. Thank you for your time, and see you again in 2 weeks.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Mohamed. Take care. Good luck with your products.
Thanks a lot, guys. Talk to you soon. Cheers.